welcome back to Thrifty with AA. On today's episode, I'm going to go through all the ways that you can save money on your bills recommended by E.on. So the tips that I'm going through are on the E.on website. I've already done a video on my best 10 tips on how you can save money this winter. So I'm going to go through the tips on the E.on website and you'll see whether they're useful or not, and I'll give my opinions on each one. So first off, bleed your radiators of air. So in your radiators, if you've got air, then your radiator is not heating up properly. The top part probably won't get hot enough, so you need to get a radiator key and turn the valve so that all the air comes up and it will eventually leave your radiator. So that's a good tip. The next tip on the E.on website is leave space around your radiators. So don't have a sofa all the way up against a radiator. I've also mentioned in my video, don't let your curtains overhang over your radiators because you're just wasting energy. So that, in my opinion, is a good tip because you're wasting energy if you've got things covering your radiator. The next tip is block drafts. So use draft strips around windows and doors, especially that letterbox. Don't let cold air come through the letterbox. If it's constantly allowing cold air through, then you better fix that. And by blocking all your drafts, according to the E.on website, you can save £45 a year. So that is definitely another good tip. The next tip on the website is block your chimney to prevent drafts. Now, if you're heating your house and the air is seeping out through the chimney, well, you're wasting all of the energy. So what you can do is get an inflatable chimney balloon or get a builder to put a draft cap in your chimney. And that is a pretty good tip. But like probably most of you, I don't have a chimney or a fireplace, so the air can leak right through it. The next tip is leave your thermostat alone, because if you are just raising the temperature of your thermostat when you get home on those very cold days, your house won't heat up any quicker than if you kept the temperature at the right comfortable temperature for yourselves. So don't just raise the temperature on your thermostat, you're just going to waste gas. So that's a pretty decent tip. Finally, in that same section of heating your home on the website, I never thought of that, but let the sunshine in. So if you've got south facing windows, open the curtains up early in the morning and let the sun heat your room up or heat your house up. And that does make a difference, actually. So that's a very easy thing to do. And it's a good tip, in my opinion. So the next section is about energy efficient lighting. And the first tip is go hands-free. Now, this is about having your lights connected to a Wi-Fi network, and you can control your lights via Alexa or Echo or Google Home. But these are useful if you're so busy and you can't be bothered to turn the light on, and you can just tell your device to control your lights. Is it a great tip? Maybe, if you use something like that. Personally, I stay away from devices like that because I find them too intrusive. I don't want the internet hearing everything that goes around in my house. Now, if you've got outside lights and you've got a switch, keep that light off. It's great to welcome someone in and guests in when with light outside your house, but if you've got a sensor on it, that's a better solution. And if you've got a timer on it, make sure you adjust the timer for the correct season so you're not wasting electricity. So that is definitely a pretty easy fix, I would say. Depends on if you've got outside lighting. It could be useful for you. I don't have outside lighting, unfortunately. The next tip is about getting the right type of lights. So in a room where you don't need very bright lights, get a light that is less efficient. For example, in my bathroom and toilet, I'm not using very bright lights there because the rooms are pretty small and I'm using lower powered lights. So that's an easy fix and something I recommend. The final tip in that section is about getting low energy bulbs. That's a very important tip because the previous bulbs that I remember growing up with, we used to have bulbs that were 60, 80, 100 watts. But now the bulbs that I'm using LED bulbs that are 5 watts, 10 watts, and they're a lot more efficient. So make sure you're using energy efficient lights, because if you're using a 100-watt light bulb in one room, well, that's enough energy to really light up probably your whole house if you use energy efficient light bulbs. So that's a good tip. So the next section is about hot water, and the first tip is about a hot water cylinder. If you've got a hot water cylinder, you need to insulate that. If you went outside, you would wear a jacket, right? Rightfully so. Apparently there's a British standard jacket for your hot water cylinders that's 80 millimeters thick, and that can save you about £35 a year. So if I had a hot water cylinder, that's something I'd definitely do. So the next tip is about getting an energy efficient shower head. So why waste hot water when you're having a shower? So that's something you can do. I haven't necessarily done that myself, but it's not necessarily a bad tip. If you're going away for a few days or about a week or wherever you're going on holiday, turn your boiler off. So just turn it off at the mains, and your boiler won't be turning on intermittently, keeping the hot water ready for the inhabitants of the home. So make sure you turn your boiler off when you go away. That is a good tip. The next tip is about radiator pipes. If you've got exposed pipes that's not insulated, well, when the radiator's on, the pipes are also releasing heat. And what you can do is get insulation to cover the pipes so the heat stays in and you're not losing some energy. It's not something that I've done myself, but something I'll look into because it's not a very expensive fix. Next one, turn your hot water down. You can reduce the temperature by about 5 degrees and your water will still be hot enough to do your washing and so on. So by 5 degrees, that will save you some gas. Why not? I think that's a pretty good tip. So the last tip in that section is about how you should wash. If you're going to run a bath, you're going to waste about 80 to 100 litres, or use about 80 to 100 litres of water. Whereas if you have a shower, you probably use about a third of that in a 5-minute shower, that is. If you want to save time and you want to save money, have a shower. So I think that's a good tip. So the next section is about efficiently cooking. So the first tip there is about how you should cook. Now, if you're going to use your oven, try and use as much of the oven space as you can, i.e. cook more than one item at one go, because the oven uses a lot of energy. Otherwise, use an air fryer or a microwave. That is a much more efficient way of cooking if you've got something small. So that is a very important tip. And then related to the oven is shut the oven doors. So when you want to check to see if something is right, try and just look through the glass, because as soon as you open that oven door, because all that heat that's in the oven, that your oven's been working hard to heat up, you're just going to waste all of that when you open the oven. So try and check your food by looking through the glass of your oven. The next tip in that section is about keeping your lids on your pans and pots, because if you're not, then you're just letting the heat escape. Keeping the lids on will allow you to heat up the food quicker and waste less gas. So good tip. The next thing in that section is about cooking extra. Don't just cook for one meal or one day. Try and cook for a few days, and that way you're making the most of your energy. So a very good tip, and it also saves you time, doesn't it? So worth doing. And the final tip in that section, if you want to defrost something, rather than using your microwave to defrost it or putting it in a steamer, your frozen goods that is, just allow your frozen food to just sit on your countertop or in a bowl and let that thaw and defrost naturally by room temperature, and that way you don't have to waste the extra energy when you're defrosting your cold food. So the last section is about appliances, and the first tip there is about washing machines. So instead of washing your clothes at 40 degrees or higher, reduce the temperature to about 30 degrees, and that way you can save about £28 a year on your bills, according to E.on. So that's a tip worth following. The next tip is about your chargers. Now, unplug all your chargers and turn them off when you're not using it. In fact, when you're charging your devices, sometimes we overcharge them, and that wastes some energy. So make sure you unplug your chargers so that you're not wasting any energy. And apparently that can save you £80 a year. That's huge, really. So the next tip is about fridge freezers. So if you've got a backup fridge freezer, then you're running twice as much energy. So try and stick to only one of those items running in your house. So the next tip is about fridge freezers. If you've got a backup fridge freezer, then you're actually using twice as much energy. So if you can just do with one, then you're saving about £80 a year, which is a decent save. And the next one, if you've got a tumble dryer, try not to use it at times. Put the clothes out on the washing line, and you're going to save that energy. There's nothing better than clothes that has been dried in the sun, smelling nice and fresh. So try and use the outdoor space, and your clothes will smell better as well. The next tip on the E.on website in that section is about keeping your fridge clean. So at the back of your fridge, you see all those grills. Try and keep that area clean every few months. Move your fridge out and clean that area up. So that's worth doing because your fridge will run more efficiently and it won't waste the energy. And the next tip is about leaving your devices on standby. We leave our TV on, for example, all day long. The microwave is still on standby all day long, and that's something that we can do. We can turn them all off. So the next tip is about the devices that we leave on standby. That wastes a lot of electricity. It's something that I never really pay much attention to. For example, we leave our TV on, our microwave on all the time. Well, not on, but it's on standby. And that wastes electricity. It's been found apparently, according to E.on website, that you can save up to £55 a year. So that's something worth doing. And the final tip on the E.on website is about fully loading your washing machine and your dishwasher when you're using it. And that makes sense. Why use a washing machine that's half full or it's only got a few items of clothing, and your dishwasher when it's just half full or a quarter full? So try and use your dishwasher and your washing machine fully when you're using it. So that's also a tip worth following. So these are the tips that I've come across on the E.on website. Some of them are really good. Some of them I never thought about. And it's not about one or two tips that's going to make a huge difference for you. It's about putting a lot of those tips. It's about being disciplined, and it's just having that mentality of being efficient. So anyway, I hope this video has been useful. If you've got any better tips, please put them in the comments below. And please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like on this video if it's been useful. And I'll catch up with you soon.